Lori Foster Thompson, and my title is Professor of Psychology at NC State. My field is industrial and organizational psychology, so that's the psychology of the workplace. And I think I got interested in it just by handling jobs, the different odd jobs that I did along the way. By the time I turned 15, got a job at McDonald's. And that's when I really became interested in the psychology of the workplace. I became fascinated in how this was operating. And at the same time, thinking a lot about the variability in how my bosses and coworkers handled the employment situations I found myself in. Probably during the latter half of my college career that I discovered this thing called industrial and organizational psychology. So I think it was partially a function of my education, but also partially a function of my personal experiences. Not everybody understands what industrial and organizational psychology is. And many times there will be the misperception of, oh, they're analyzing me, or they're trying to, fix my problems, things like that. When in fact, this discipline has more to do with the problems of business, whether it's motivation or satisfaction among workers or training or selection. The thing I'm most passionate about is two things, but they work together. One is how technology is affecting our whole experience of work. That's something that I've seen unfold before my very eyes, as have many of you, just during the past decade, with social media, with electronic performance monitoring, all of these things that sometimes they've had positive and intended effects, and other times they've had completely unforeseen effects that aren't always so positive. The second thing I'm very passionate about is how this field of industrial and organizational psychology can be used to, sounds cliche, but to make the world a better place. When we're thinking about some of the big goals that we have worldwide, reducing poverty, reducing hunger, promoting gender equality and education, etc., etc. Those goals are met through work, in many cases, through people and organizations working together productively and effectively in a meaningful way. And therefore, in my view, there's a lot of room for the science and practice of industrial and organizational psychology to contribute to those goals. I identify very strongly both as a researcher and as a teacher. And the nice thing here at NC State is that those roles really go hand in hand. I incorporate into my classes a genuine interest in teaching. I love teaching, and I'm enthusiastic about it. It's an explicit goal of mine, for instance, when I'm teaching social psychology, is for students to realize that this isn't just something that exists on Mondays and Wednesdays from 3 o'clock to 4:15, but in their everyday life, when they're hanging out with their roommate, or walking across campus, talking to other professors, at home visiting their parents. Social psychology is present, and I want them to see the connection between the course material and their everyday life. Oftentimes when I'm teaching courses, I'm in the classroom, there will be opportunities to talk about the research studies that I'm conducting, or maybe things that I've published recently. It'll work with the material that's in the textbook, and I can go into some detail on these various studies. When the students ask questions, I've got the answers to those particular questions at my fingertips. So in that way, my research enhances my teaching. But also, in many cases, my research requires me to travel internationally. And there are many cases where we're discussing these global concepts in the classroom. For instance, we might be talking about norms and roles, rules for accepted and expected behavior, and how they vary across different regions of the world. Another example is when we're talking about global business practices. My travels have provided insights with respect to those, and I can draw in my experiences and my research to talk about global business when we're discussing those concepts in IO psychology courses. There are many times in which students will ask questions or provide comments. They might have insights or ideas, things that I've never thought of before that are very relevant to my research. It expands my thinking, helps me to see things in a different way, which allows me to look at things in ways I might not have considered otherwise. On top of that, outside of the classroom, I've got students working with me side by side on my research studies. If you look at my vita, you'll notice that most of my publications include student co-authors, rightfully so, because they're contributing to my research in a huge way, coming up with research ideas, helping to collect data, helping to write manuscripts, and so on and so forth. So my role as a researcher and my role as a teacher at NC State work together, and they are synergistic, I would say.